There you go.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexandra Hay, and I'm an intern in the Performance Plus office in the adult arm of the Kennedy Center Education Department. On behalf of the Kennedy Center, welcome to this lunchtime look-in on The Subject Was Roses. We are delighted and honored to have with us today from the cast of The Subject Was Roses, Steve Kazee, Judith Ivey, and Bill Pullman. Our moderator today Our moderator today is theater scholar and WETA FM broadcast personality, Judy Gruber. Please join me in welcoming our guests.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out on a day that looked pretty bad to start with, but fortunately the sun is up, and so's the wind. But there we are. At any rate, I would certainly like to thank our guests also for coming out. I'm sure you were tempted to stay in your hotel rooms today and hide from the world. What we usually do is I get a chance to chat with you, and then we take questions from the audience. So as usual, if you have a thought, hold on to it, we'll get to you. And when you do ask a question, I'm going to ask our guests if they'll repeat it, because we have a web camera going on today, which I understand will be broadcast on the web maybe tomorrow. So at any rate, one thing that I noticed when I saw the show last night, and by the way, bravo. I thought it was absolutely terrific. How many of you have seen the show? Oh, quite a few. It was pretty good, wasn't it? More than pretty good. I noticed in the playbill that the bios are pretty extensive, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on them for us and give us some background information, which is what I usually do in these things. And so, since you're smiling, ladies first. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. We're going to smile again.
Okay, where were you born and raised?
That's a very lengthy question. I was born in El Paso, Texas, and I moved probably every 2 or 3 years. So I've lived in Colorado and Illinois and Michigan, in several places in those states. But I've lived in New York City longer than any place else, so I'm a New Yorker.
Through and through, right?
Yeah.
And how did you get involved in theater? Was anyone in the family in theater?
No, I didn't have any help in that direction. We always say my mother's rather theatrical, but nobody ever paid her to be that way. I actually was going to be a painter. I was an art student, and we moved yet again. And I was a teenager and furious that I had moved yet again, as you can imagine, being a teenager. And the little town I moved into, you couldn't even join clubs and stuff unless you were there in 9th grade. So the only thing really open was the play. So my sister was the theatrical one, and I thought, well, I'll just go do that since, I've watched her be an actress. And I got a part, and it was a funny part, and I was hooked. As soon as I made people laugh, then, I never looked back, although I call myself the reluctant actress. I'm always looking for the exit door to this profession, thinking there's got to be something a little more comfortable. But 30 years later, I'm still here.
Well, we're glad you are.
Thank you.
But I heard that you had done a lot of commercials when you were first starting out. Was that true?
Yes, I started my career in Chicago, and it was #2 in the nation for on-camera commercials at the time. So I sold everything from Red Lobster restaurants to I was the Greyhound girl, and I was a Gerber mom. It was a wonderful introduction to the camera. I mean, commercials many times are frowned upon, but I learned an awful lot about camera. And I made a very good living, which allowed me to move to New York when I got brave enough. Mm-hmm. So.
And what happened when you got to New York? Did you do the usual round of auditioning?
Oh, yeah. In fact, my first job was here in D.C., and my second job was here in D.C., and I think my fourth job was here in D.C. I became a Washington, D.C. actress when I moved to New York, much to the dismay of the actresses who actually live here. But I fortunately started working very early, and my first job on Broadway, I was an understudy at the Kennedy Center for Bedroom Farce, and it was a British cast, and when they went home, then I was an understudy, and I managed to become the replacement for the British actress. And that was my first Broadway show. So,
So that was your first big break.
yeah, and I'd been in New York 9 months, so, you know,
Oh, very good.
It was great, you know, I mean, it was a relief.
How did you support yourself, though, when you first got to New York? Did you have to do the
Well, I had
traditional
saved
waiting
my
on
money
tables?
from my
Oh, really?
commercials, so I didn't have to go be, you know, wait tables or anything. I was a temporary secretary in Chicago when I first started, and did that for about 6 months, and then got my first job, which was a bologna commercial, and
Went on
never
from there.
ever, knock wood, ever had to, you know, go back and be a temporary secretary again. Because
And
I was
God bless.
horrible at it too.
God bless residuals.
Really.
Steve, how about you?
Well, mine's a little easier because I just started really, like, I just got out of school in May. And, I mean, I've been acting for about 10 years. I got involved when I went to undergrad. And that was in...
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Kentucky, born and raised. And, yeah.
So is somebody else.
Wow. Nice. Big ups to Kentucky. Yeah, I was born and raised in Ashland, Kentucky. And, you know, when you're from little towns in Kentucky, there aren't much programs for the arts. So I really didn't have any outlet. I just knew that, like, whenever I went to see movies or when I was a kid, I was always getting in trouble for impersonating movie characters for way too long than I should. I get in trouble at school for time.
Well, it depends on the character, surely, though.
Well, no. I got kicked out of school. Well, not kicked out of school, but I got the note to home when I was in 3rd grade because I wouldn't stop tying things around my neck to be Superman. I was a very strange kid. I was very weird.
You didn't try flying, though.
Well, a couple of times.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and broken arm later. I kind of got out of it, but it was always there was an old show called BJ and the Bear. There was an old TV show about a truck driver and a monkey, and my dad was a truck driver and he had a truck that looked just like that truck, so it was a natural fit. So I was a chimp for about 3 weeks, and I couldn't, like, my parents would have to, like, get me to get off of my hands and knees at the grocery store, and it was awful. So even though there weren't programs for it, I've been an actor since I think I was a little kid. But when I got to college, I got into it more thoroughly, thanks to this blonde girl who I followed to an audition one day. And I didn't know anything about it. It's a true story. And I got to the audition, and I was just kind of waiting for her to get done. And the guy came out and said, "Are you here to audition?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, why don't you come on in anyway?" And I was like, "All right." And the next thing you know, 10 years later, I was in grad school at New York University for acting, and just kind of snowballed from there. But I took some time off in undergrad and traveled around the country and worked at every small theater that no one here has ever heard of, and just kind of, like, got myself oriented to the stage and to doing theater. I haven't done that much camera work yet, hopefully soon. But yeah, my path was a little simpler so far.
Well, this is a great break for you, though, surely.
Yeah. Everything you read is true. Yeah, it's kind of, you know, they talked at school about, oh, it's going to be so hard, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be starving for your whole entire first couple of years out of school, and, you know, it's been pretty good for me so far. So I'm not complaining at all. I'm very lucky.
Indeed. Well, we're delighted that you're here in Washington.
Thank you for having me.
play. And Bill Pullman, you took a rather circuitous route also. You were from upstate New York?
Yeah.
Is that where it is, where you were born?
Born in Hornell, New York, which is south of Rochester, small town that's was a Erie Lackawanna shops town, kind of where halfway between Chicago and New York, where they fixed the trains for a long time. And they had a little theater then, and I did a couple of things.
Well, was anybody in your family involved in it?
No,
I mean,
most
there
of my
was
family's in
7
medicine.
kids, right, or 8 kids or something like that, yeah?
7 kids, and most of them have. My father was a doctor, my mother was a nurse, and grandfather doctor, and four 4 of the brothers and sisters are in direct medicine, and then another one's a masseuse, another one's a social worker, all kind of caregivers. So, but I was the youngest boy, and I think they just lost interest in trying to make me do anything, you know? It was lucky me. Where's Bill? I don't know. But, you know, they started, and I've been glad that they, you know, they could remain pretty loyal, and I had a good showing on Saturday night, Sunday night, well, Saturday and Sunday. I had a brother come down, and I got cousins coming in from Oklahoma City and California, and the cachet of the Kennedy Center is pretty cool. You know, there's something about it. It feels like a destination that people want to go see a play, and then they can catch the museums, and then so I got more coming this weekend too.
So basically, though, when you started out, did you decide that this was going to be your career, that you
No,
wanted it?
I had a very strange, it reminds me of that story about the hippopotamus that's fallen in love with the turtle. You know, have you followed this after,
the real one.
the tsunami? And
Yeah.
they rescued this hippo, and then they put him in a place, and the first person he ran into was this 130-year-old tortoise, and the hippo's 6 months. But they fell in love, is the way the newscast says it.
Right, yeah.
And they hang, and they're inseparable, you know. So I felt like I was a hippopotamus that fell in love with the tortoise when I got started for the theater. You know, I'd been there for a long time, and it wasn't anything that anybody had done in my family. And but
Were
I
they
have a
surprised?
interesting- what's it? Yeah, they were all surprised because I had started out in building construction, and I was bucking my father. You know, that was the early 70s when everything you could do to anger your parents was what you wanted to do. And I thought, boy, this is going to set them back. They didn't care.
They remembered who you were, right? That was it?
They did remember I was a son in the family. That was good. But no, they then remained very supportive, and you know, and until they've been there now about 12 years. But they remain very supportive, and Washington has a little history for me, which is precious to my heart. I trained in theater as a director and actor. And I was in Montana for a significant part of my period in the 20s in teaching and Montana State University and directing plays and developing new material and touring Shakespeare and stuff. And then I said, you know what, Montana's so beautiful. If I don't leave now, I'll never leave, and I'll never know what's out there. So I went to New York in '81. And the first job I got was at the Folger Theater. So I came down and did a production of Aphra Bain's The Rover. You know, Aphra Bain, the first professional woman playwright. She was English restoration playwright. You
Don't know it at all.
Oh,
no.
she's amazing. Her life is actually better than the play, but she was a mistress and a spy to French head of states, and then she wrote plays, and she wrote this play called The Rover, and I had a very small part that I hope no one ever shows up with a picture of me in it. I was the one-man band Stefano, the servant slave, and I had a cup on the end of my guitar, and I play the guitar, and you know, it was little bits and stuff, you know, but I was glad to have the job. It was, you know, I suddenly was employed, and I'd only been in New York for, you know, a couple of months and something, and I stayed here a lot. We did the show forever, and it was really, felt like what it was, we'd like to be a professional actor and everything. And then the second chapter was a struggle. You know, you go and do the regions out of New York. You know, when you're first there, that was my journey. I got jobs outside of New York, and then at a certain point you say, I got to stay in New York, you know, figure it out. And I was staying in New York and selling wine at a wine store, which was terrible because I lost my sense of smell in an accident, and I can't taste very well. So I had to advocate for wines I really had no idea about. So, but in the middle of that, I got a job offer for the Children's Theater, and they said, we're going to go to the Kennedy Center. And I thought, really? Children's Theater? What color tights do I wear? Well, I think I got the brown tights. We were all in different colors that had different significances, and it was a strange thing. But we did come down here, and then somebody reported that we were non-equity and we should have been equity, so they made us equity. And the last day of the show, it was like we just did like 4 shows or something. So I got my equity card from the Kennedy Center. So, back door all the way.
The Kennedy Center obviously has been really good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because how long does it normally take you to get an equity card? Why don't we tell the audience about getting an equity card? Is it difficult? Hello?
It's supposed to be. I just got mine. I got mine for Edward Albee's Seascape on Broadway. And again, a very lucky story, actually. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be on Broadway. It was supposed to be at Lincoln Center Theater, which is still, not bad.
Yeah.
But because of the success of Light in the Piazza, they didn't have anywhere to put it. So it got moved to a Broadway house, which meant more pay. And then I got my equity card from that. So it was...
You have to be in a show to get your equity card? Which
so
comes
much
first, the chicken or the egg?
more now it is. It used to be like a membership candidacy program. You could get points. You could go work in summer stock in the summers and get points. But that's never really been an option for me. So now, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, you have to get a contract, a production contract. Or some sort of regional contract.
You also, it's hard to get in an equity show unless you go to an equity audition, and you can't go to an equity audition unless you're in equity. So it's kind of chasing your tail for a while. It took me a year out of school before I was cast in an equity show.
But in AFTRA, I think we can just go get it, can't we?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
call it Taft-Hartley, where you get the job, and then after 2 jobs, you have to become a
Right.
member of
Well, with
AFTRA.
SAG, it's certainly that
SAG,
way, yeah,
yeah.
you have to.
There's
First
a thing.
off,
There's a
it's
thing with
free.
equity, or it's SAG or AFTRA, where if you have one, you can go get the other ones without
That's true,
without
yeah.
getting your card or without having to get a contract.
Right,
You know?
yeah, that's changed now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then your dues are different too, but we're going to bore them with all that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later if you want. At any rate, now you both you and Judith have gone into directing. Is that correct? Yeah, you directed Steel Magnolias.
I directed Steel Magnolias at the Alley Theater in Houston this past year, and a play called Bad Dates, which is a one-woman play at Laguna Beach, which is going to go to L.A. And then Yardley Smith wrote a play about herself. She's the voice of Lisa Simpson, for those who don't know, and wrote about what it was to be a voiceover actress when you're really wanting to be in front of the camera. And she asked me to direct that, so that was done off-Broadway. And then there are a bunch of other... I have a lot of friends who initially came to me and said, would you direct me in this? And that's how it began. I didn't seek it out until recently.
Any future plans right now for directing? Anything?
I actually go to San Francisco next month to direct a workshop of a new play.
And Bill Pullman, you've been directing also.
Well, I did it early on, a lot more than, but recently I have a project that I developed at the Denver Theater Center that came about because I was on contract for a miniseries, and they kept saying they were going to start, and they never started, and so I had to occupy myself some way because I couldn't take another job. So I had a friend at Denver Theater Center, and I went up there and developed this piece called Expedition 6, which is a devised piece with 8 actors who do trapeze, and it's based on a true story of the 3 astronauts that were stranded on the space station after the Columbia blew up.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh is right.
It's interesting, and I don't know if I'll jinx this thing, but I've always been impressed by Washington theater, and I thought, well, I'm here. Let me just see, because these 8 actors we want to do a final workshop of it. We've got it all pieced in different ways. It's a very cumbersome thing to try to organize, but I talked to Arena Stage, and they're thinking about it. So. Molly Smith, it's fantastic theater world here. I really have enjoyed, the Woolly Mammoth has got a national reputation. That's, and Howard Schulwitz has great signature. I went up and saw the new roundhouse facility, which is just impressive as heck. Jerry Whidden was in the Rover with me 25 years ago, and then he stayed and did this beautiful, put in 30 years, I think, and he's just recently retired, but they have the 2-theater complex up there in Silver Springs, Maryland, and which is right just 6 miles from here, and that's a brand new facility. The Woolly Mammoth has a brand new facility. It's a genius design. Feels like theater's really healthy here now. And then the arena's going to go into this new development phase, which is brilliant. They're going to take this kind of bunker-like place and turn it into a glass-walled kind of real community, showpiece on the river there. So it feels very lively here.
The irony of all that is, I remember when the Kennedy Center opened, there were hues and cries about, oh my gosh, it's going to kill music and theater. Nobody else will perform in town. It will be strictly at the center. And instead, it all blossomed and mushroomed around it quite beautifully. Yeah. It's been great.
They say it's the third largest number of theaters in a city in America,
Really?
Right after New York and Chicago, I think, and then Washington, which is
didn't know that.
quite amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult is it for you? Now, you both are married. You have a girlfriend. I checked that out right away. But how difficult is it being on the road? Now, this play is only here at the Kennedy Center? You haven't been anywhere else prior to this?
No,
And then it will stop here, or will you go on?
we don't know yet.
I see. Oh, okay. But how difficult is it being on the road? You're married, you have families. Do you get a chance to see them often, or what?
Well, I go home every Monday to New York City. I get on the train early in the morning and get there with my kids still in school, and so I have dinner, and then I stay till I get them off to school, and then I get back on the train. So I get to see them at least once a week, and my husband. I want to make it just. I love seeing him. I wish it was more than once a week.
Well, he's in
but
the business too, though, isn't he?
He's a
Is he
television producer and has his own production company. But it's very difficult. It's I certainly have made choices in my career's lifetime that the family was first rather than the career. But fortunately, I am married to the man I'm married to, so he's incredibly supportive and grabs the rings when I have to go away, and then I do the same for him. So thus far, we've managed to balance it, and our kids everybody seems to like to be around them, so I guess it's they didn't turn into weirdos or something, I would prefer to stay home. It would be nice if the subject was roses went to New York.
Yeah.
But of course, that wouldn't be true for Bill.
Well, you're in L.A., right?
In L.A., yeah, but everything you kind of work it out, I guess. You know what? We had this weird coincidence. I don't know if I told you that my wife is a dancer, and she danced in New York professionally with a Lamone company and other companies, and then kind of had children and did other things, and then got back into it and teaching and doing a kind of unique way of teaching using choreography. And then last year, she did a workshop and then got invited into the company of Liz Lerman, the Dance Exchange, which is here in Washington. I think just amazing company. It's the only multi-generational dance company really professionally operating in America, and they do community-based pieces, so they're doing kind of text, sometimes generated with movement, these kind of performance pieces that are birthed from stories of a community, and they go into different places. It's amazing work, and they're really, I'm so impressed by it. And so my coming here actually allowed her, she came here, and we went up there and saw the new building and everything, and she's coming back in April to do a workshop here, and then she's going to do another piece with them later in the late summer, and so it worked out that way. And the kids came to New York over Christmas, where we were rehearsing. I was working, and I saw them at night, so you work it out.
Well, it just goes with the job. I mean, it's going to be that way. And
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about it, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get involved with the subject, Was Roses?
They sent me the script and asked me if I'd like to do it.
Oh.
It was pretty simple.
Yeah.
I had never read it, and I it was just one of those that's it's in your mind, and I think I might have seen the movie at some point in my lifetime, but I was very ignorant of it, and when I read it, I thought it was remarkable, especially since it is so lean a play, and it's so much about what isn't said as opposed to what is said, and I like that. It's a real challenge as an actor.
Bill, how did you get? Did they call you?
Same idea. Yeah, they sent the script, and I kept thinking, is this the drunkard play? Because I was thinking of the days of wine and roses.
It's from your wine selling days.
Yeah, I thought I'm not going to do well with the wine. But and then I read it and realized I'd never read it before, and I was impressed by it. And my training, I didn't really come through a conventional or when I was coming through, I was trained more in Grotowski techniques, all these weird sound and movement, not realism-based theater. And so, but I've always been intrigued, and I think it's such an important part of Americans' contribution to drama and everything. And this felt like a piece that was worthy of that kind of era. And so I was intrigued. I hadn't done a play since 4 years ago. I did The Goat on Broadway. So I was itching to do something. And so then, and then we met Steve, and we were off and running.
And Steve, did you audition for it?
Oh no, they sent me the script too, and I had some other films in the works, but my story's a little different on that, and
I'm sure.
they had been looking for this guy for a while, and I think just about everybody from California to New York to D.C. has auditioned for this role. It was a long process. It was about 4 weeks. It was strange. My agent sent me the script, and like so many other things that I get, I go, okay, I'm absolutely. I love it.
Judy has a nice phone ring
Yeah.
we've been enjoying for a month.
Let's all dance.
All the time. You can't get mad because it's kind of dancing. It's nice. But
So if any of your phones go off in the production, you can say, well, Judy's went off in the talk.
On the web, no less.
So the audition rolls around, and you get scripts all the time, and you kind of go, I'm not right for this. And the character is 21, and I had just turned 22, so I thought I was a little bit too old for it. No, I had just turned 30, and when I got the script, and I was like, okay, like maybe a couple of years ago, I don't know. So I went in for it the first time. I really didn't read through the play very often. I kind of skimmed through it. I looked over the audition scenes and went into the audition, and I was like, oh, okay, fine. On to the next thing. I was doing Seascape at the time, so I wasn't real worried about a job. Well, then I got a call back, and I was like, oh, okay, I got a call back. Well, this is kind of exciting. So then I started like pushing my hair forward and like, making sure I was clean shaven, and oh God, do I look young? A little bit of eye hair. So then the second audition rolls around, and this was with the director and the producer and the playwright, and it ended up going really well. And then a third week rolls around, and I come back in, and I get to audition with Bill and Judy. I've never been more nervous in my life. I ruined a brand new shirt that I had because there was just sweat like down to this. But and I'll tell a story on Judy real quick. I came in and I was so nervous. I was so scared, and I've told her this 100 times. I've never been so nervous in my life. And I walk in, and Bill is in the back, in the corner, in this like imposing, figure of a man. And he just like turns around, and I was like, oh my God. Like, this is really happening. And then I look, and here's Judy, and I'm like, oh my God. So I look at Judy, and she just looked at me, and she goes, and gave me this little wink, like a very like motherly kind of thing to do. And all of a sudden, I just went, okay, this is fine. And we did the audition, and I left, and 2 days later, they were like, guess what? You're getting ready to make your debut at the Kennedy Center, and you're not going to be able to stand in the background and just smile. You're actually going to have to say some things.
Quite a few things.
Quite a few things, yeah. So no
See,
pressure.
if I had winked at you, you wouldn't have taken the job. I can't do this thing. Pullman winked at me.
there is something to fate. Well, thank you for that, Bill. I thought that the play went absolutely marvelous. I saw it last night, and I noticed, I don't know if you read the reviews or not, but the Post review basically in the Washington Post was that the play itself was dated, which I didn't find at all. And I know in the second act, seriously, you could have heard a pin drop in that house. It is so engrossing and so intense. And I was just wondering, what resources did you call on for these roles? Dysfunctional families still abound. You know?
Well, it's a very, challenging play because, Frank has this love of vaudeville, and there's a lot of rhythms in it that are very funny, and
There's a lot of humor in the play that
there's a lot of
surprised
humor
me.
in it, yeah. So, it's deceptive, the play, I think, and so we really have dug in, and feel so fortunate that we're connected up there as actors. Frankly, that doesn't happen all the time, where you really are looking at someone and they're really looking back at you, and they're taking in what you're doing, and you're taking in what they're doing, and it's an adjustment process. It's finding new rhythms every night, I think, for all of us, and the play is moving quickly now in different ways, and it's I don't know where we were last week, but each week we're moving in alive ways. I feel like it's been alive all along. So.
Judith?
I always say I can't reveal my sources.
You're in a good town for that.
Yeah. That's true. Everyone relates. It almost came as a natural evolution. We're parents. We have children. My children haven't grown up quite that much, nor have Bill's. They're all, under 18. So, therefore, we haven't faced losing them, but it's certainly all parents relate to the day they do walk out your door. I think there's just a lot of givens in the play, which is why the play is not dated and why people relate to it, that it's an experience that everyone is either about to have or has had, and it's moving that way. I echo Bill's sentiment. It's so fun to be out there night after night, despite the sadness and the sorrow and the loss that you feel in the story. It's thrilling to be with these two guys. It's a living, breathing organism, and it is rare. Unfortunately, a lot of times it gets very staid and very measured and predictable, and I find that boring. I'm just wondering why I've left my children, if I'm going to come here and just, meet it out all the time. So this is thrilling for me to be in this event where it's I don't know what he's going to do next. I don't know what he's going to do next. In fact, the other night, the two of them in the big scene where he's challenging him, what does he believe, and why, you must go to Mass and the whole thing. I don't know what was going on between the two of them, but I had no escape. I thought, oh, my dear, I'm stuck against this kitchen counter. I hope I can run. If they, it was so volatile and so exciting to watch and throw in the little bit that Nettie dares to say. So it's fun to just watch them, even if I don't have something to do in the midst of it, or I don't have as great a contribution. That's rare as well.
There's some very intense scenes in that show. And Steve, for you, you're basically, I guess, the catalyst by coming back.
Yeah. It's a tough sort of journey every night. I mean, I think the thing about critics and reviewers and whatnot, people don't like to have a mirror put up to their face. You know what I mean? And this play is a play that holds a mirror up and says, you know what? We all have. How many times has somebody's father in this room said, this is my house, and if you don't like it, then get out? It's just something that we all hear. We all know these things that happen. I feel like, we were all kind of shocked about the laughter. Because, we're all like, they kept saying, don't play the play for laughs, and we were like, what, are you crazy? There's no laughs in the play. First preview, you would have thought we were doing, a Neil Simon play. And I think we were all kind of thrown. But I think it's a recognition laughter, you know, because people know. So I just don't think people like to see that sometimes, you know. I think it's a little hard to deal with, which is why I think a lot of people are choosing to say the play is dated. And I just think that it's a tough journey to go through every night, and it's a tough thing to experience every night. But much like Judy said, it's a pleasure to do it again and again, which is the really kind of like masochistic thing about it. You know, it's like, God, I can't wait to go through that again tomorrow night. We got 2 today? Yes! But it's just, it's a very powerful play, and it's a play about relationships, and we all know it, you know. We all know the story. It may be different. There's different variations. It may not be alcohol. It may not be this. It may not be that. But there's always things. That's the thing about family that makes it wonderful and, you know, very frustrating all at the same time.
Why do they never say Shakespeare's dated? You know,
Exactly.
I don't
Amen.
A
get
little
that.
older, yeah.
Yeah.
People don't like to feel uncomfortable. You know, that's the thing. And some people, you know, can't.
Well, I think the Post Reviewer was getting at the fact that when the play first was done, it was sort of shocking that people hadn't necessarily seen this sort of dysfunctional family on stage before. Although Shakespeare certainly had dysfunctional families on stage, but I think that was like the shock value is gone. But certainly the recognition value is there, which can be shocking in itself. Yeah. As actors, what do you do to build background? Like Judy's off, supposedly gone for 12 hours. Do you have in your head what you were doing? I mean,
I
know
just
your
call my dad.
dialogue is-
Yeah. I just call my family. That's where I get my background at.
Oh dear.
Hey, tell me a story. Thanks so much.
No, but do you supply your own background? I mean, do you think of what Nettie would be doing for those 12 hours?
Sure. Yeah.
Which may be different than what's in the script or whatever.
Yes, I just do a little map of New York City and where she went, in my opinion, you know.
We had a remarkable rehearsal one time when Judy was struggling with the scene where she comes back in and she hadn't felt satisfied with what was going on. And she said, you know what, let's just go again and let me do something now. And she totally turned the scene on its head just by making a different assumption or something. I don't know what it was, but it totally galvanized. Just, it's the power of the magic if, you know, which they talk about in theater training, you know, if you assume an if, what if I came into this room having had this experience, what does it happen? How does it change? And the more specific you are to that if, and the more dedicated and passionate you are about it, the more it can galvanize the real dramatic action. So you're not just playing the words, but you're playing the thrust underneath it.
Well, they're all such frustrated characters. It's so sad. But you can understand. It's like there's a line in the show, nobody's to blame. And it's so true. I mean, everybody has their own personal demons. And this show, everybody has their own personal demons, that's for sure. Let me ask you a question about what you think would happen when that final curtain comes down. What do you think happens to the characters then? This is a pop quiz.
I don't want to think about
They
it.
put on reggae music and dance. It's wonderful.
Nettie gets a new dress.
Does Timmy escape?
You know, I'll tell you, I'll let you in on a little rehearsal secret and a little performance secret. I have no idea. I'm so embarrassed to admit this. I have no idea what happens at the end of the play. I mean, I have no idea. I literally do not know what happens at the end of this play. And that's okay for me, because I don't think Timmy really knows what's going on in that moment. But the director kept saying to me, do you want to know? Do you want to know? Do you want to know what I think? And I was like, no, I don't want to know what you think. And I didn't want to know what anybody thinks. And so when people come and see the show, they're like, so what oh, sorry. So, right into an outlet, too. So, you know, they're like, what happens at the end of the play? And the thing comes down, and you guys are just, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to know, quite honestly. He said he'd tell me when the show is done what he thought happens. I mean, I have ideas, but, I mean, that's
Well,
just
it's
my
not bad to
personal-
leave it up to the audience to decide.
No, I like that.
Is he gonna
This
stay
play
there?
is
Is he gonna
great
go to
for that,
college or
too.
whatever, yeah.
There's so much in this play that, you know, somebody goes, well, then when you did that. And, and the audience is like, what did he do? What happened? And I love that about plays.
I don't think that John and Nettie are ever going to get a divorce, though. That's my take on it, but what do I know? At any rate, let's open it up to the audience here now. And again, let me remind you, would you repeat the question for the microphones? Yeah. Okay, well, all right, lady right here.
I have a question. When they were drinking the beer and the wine, is that real beer and wine?
Okay, the question is, was it real beer and real whiskey? Whiskey.
Was it?
No. Oh, wouldn't that have been fun? I don't know why we didn't think of it.
You wouldn't have made it to Act Two.
Yeah, it would have been very relaxing. Yeah. Well, it's Evan Williams. You know that bourbon? It's an old brand.
strange.
It's an interesting
Never
brand. I
heard
don't
of
know
that.
if it exists anymore. I think the prop guy, does it, Evan Williams? But they
In
found
Kentucky.
in Kentucky, yeah. But they found this bottle that's a period bottle, so I don't recognize, I guess, the bottle shape and everything. But
And that's one thing I wanted to compliment the set designer. I thought the set was wonderful, and the period details were so accurate, painfully accurate, according to the friend I took with me. He said that he recognized that place as some of the houses he had grown up in and apartments he had grown up in the 50s. Yeah. Oh, it's a wonderful job. Really great job. But I didn't know about the whiskey. Yes, ma'am.
On that subject, my daughter and I, the first thing we said when the lights came up was, oh my God, it's an Edward Hopper painting. I'd like to know as a scene designer if that played into it. Because I mean, just pull his art out. It's like, oh my gosh. We went home and she's like, look, the colors even the same. Oh my God.
wow,
It does look like an Edward Hopper painting to begin
That
with.
was
yeah.
the influence. That was.
that's it,
Yeah.
exactly.
You
Bingo.
got it
Give
right.
her $100,000. But that's,
Yes, sir.
Well, I have a plea. Would somebody think about reading Gilroy's prior play, Who Saved the Plowboy?
Oh.
I think it's worth doing. I've never seen it. I want to see it.
Yeah, somebody was saying at the opening night party, I said, what do you think is Frank's other great play? And he said, Who'll Save the Plowboy?
Yeah. Frank Gilroy. Yeah. Yeah. Don't know. I don't know the play either. Afraid I've never seen it. Yes, back there.
You mentioned all of you talked about the play becoming more alive. Number one, what exactly does that mean? Do your lines change as it progresses? And are you suggesting that patrons maybe need to see it more than once to see how it evolves?
Well, I mean, it's a sad fact, that theater is not anything that has gotten faster with the improvements of technology. It's an old art form, and in the old days, they used to have a lot of time with a play before anybody put their eye on it. This time, we had 4 audiences before we were scrutinized. Things happen. I'd love to say we were perfect and did the same show then that we do to the end, but that's not life. It's only movies, that do that. So, I don't think anybody got robbed last week for sure. But I think it is, for those serious theater goers, the fact you're here today means you're serious about the theater. And you all know this, I think, probably. And you've seen shows that have different stages of the game or, whatnot. And I think with this, we don't change lines. We don't do anything like that, except inadvertently from time to time. But I think, there's something that you just can't measure about what it is to possess a play. It's a little bit of rearranging your molecules inside your body. And I feel that way at the end of every show. I somehow have a period where I need to get something back. But and I think, that process takes time. It takes application and it takes investment and, it's not easy, or a lot more people would be doing it, and every show would be a hit.
Do you feel that when you come off stage at night, you have to decompress for a while? I mean, it's pretty intense.
I think so. I always can tell whether or not a play is serving me, the actress, by how long it does take me to decompress. And this play serves me greatly, so I can go to sleep pretty quick. I've had a full evening. I'm not, replaying it in my head. Oh, I wish I would have. Oh, I never will get that moment. Oh, it's, and criticizing it. This is a completely realized production in my mind and in my experience. So, I was asleep by midnight last night. That's good for me.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yes, from Miss Pullman. 4 years ago, my daughter and I saw you in what I consider the best stage performance I've ever seen of The Goat. And it was a week before you left that show. And we were in probably fifth row center. Wonderful seats. It was just an extraordinary performance. At the final horrific scene, after Sylvia's body had been dragged on stage, and I believe that you fell to your knees, your arms to the upward, and the woman next to me, with two huge shopping bags, stood up and proceeded to exit over us. I actually had to help with the bags, and it was loud and crinkly, and I just assumed she was desperately ill. But I mean, it was the final. Went over my daughter and to the aisle, and then the curtain comes down. We missed the entire. and I thought, were you aware of this? You are right there, 10 feet away, like this in your final speech. Do these things affect you?
Yeah.
Even now.
Yeah. We have, we did an interesting show last week to a hearing impaired audience, and they had the words of the play on the wall, and they can't exactly get the words printed at the same time we're saying them. So
5-second delay.
there's a delay. So, and then people who are hard of hearing really severely also don't know how they sound. So their laughter becomes an oddity that then other audience members laugh at. So you've got the first laugh, and then you've got the other laugh, and then you got the third laugh, and it's yeah, it's really wild, and you're kind of peripherally involved with that. I mean, if you weren't, you wouldn't really be having a full theatrical experience. I don't believe. I think that there is this presence out there, and with The Goat. Sometimes, as with any play, you feel it's almost like I've sensed this kind of farm pond out there with warm and cold spots, and it's all mushing around, and it's all kind of ambiguous, and I don't really want to know too much about it, but there's a lot, like with the play, that's a tough play, like that play and this play, where I feed on rejection. I have to kind of go to a larger part of who I am as a shaman of this character, and be able to take it in and make it part of the experience. So I'm not of the school that totally. I find somehow that's what makes the theater like a church or like a sacred philosophical place.
Yes.
Comment and a question. My only comment is everyone goes to the theater as the audience for different reasons. I go because of the sheer pleasure of having someone like the three of you rearrange your molecules, expose yourself, entertain me to tell me the story. For that, I thank you each and every time. My question goes back to before the curtain drop. I'm not intrigued by what happens to all three of you after the curtain drops. We went to see the play. I was stunned at the end to the point that I was delaying in my clapping for you because I didn't know what happened. I was mad at all three of you. You, Tim, were the bridge to your parents. Maybe not between your parents, but at least the bridge to the nuclear family. At the very end, he gave you an opportunity, I thought, both mother and father, to keep that bridge alive. He said, I'll stay and live with you. You shunned it. And I was very angry at the father. We got a different interpretation from the ending. I'd be more than happy to hear from you how you felt
Well, the question is,
Your turn.
Bill.
I guess it's more of a statement about being upset with the way the end of the play takes place, which is the son offers to stay after he's already planned on leaving, and the father rejecting his choice. I was going to say earlier, so thank you for bringing this up, that sort of in answer to what do you think happens after the play, I think it's a very noble gesture on the father's part and terribly painful for him. And the scene that precedes the scene with his son, with his wife, where she says, look, he's got to leave sometime. Mm-hmm. And her message is, don't leave on a bad note. Don't start a row. And given the fact that John seemingly never listens to Nettie about much of anything, I think I always, night after night, feel that there's this incredible door that's opened maybe just a crack, but it's the beginning of something between them that he actually listened to her. And of course, you, the audience, get to watch his struggle in trying to talk to his son. Nettie misses out on that, unless she's eavesdropping in the next room, which I don't think she is. But therefore, I think it's noble, but it's very human. I mean, John Cleary isn't going to all of a sudden emerge, as a man who's gone through analysis and group
Mr.
therapy and
Sensitivity.
found himself.
Right.
I mean, he's doing the best he can. I think that's a lot of what the play is about, is everybody's doing the best they can given their whatever limitations they have. Does that help you? And please don't kill the messenger. Oh.
I kind of feel the same way. I feel like it's this tremendous act of kindness from him, for his, because I know it sounds crazy, right? But you're thinking about a man who's never been, and I don't mean to speak for you, so please, if I'm saying too much, say something. But from my point of view, from Timmy's point of view, it seems like to me that this is the only way he knows how to let me leave the house and start my own life. And it sounds like a really crappy thing to say to someone. Well, okay, I'll stay. Nah, forget it. But it's his way. And to me, the thing that happens to me is I go, okay, that's that little thing that I needed. I need to tell you that I love you, and I need to let you let me go. And I'm going to get a little emotional. And he does it the only way he knows how. That's kind of the way I see. So I don't really see it as a cruel thing either. I think Judy and I have the same kind of take on it.
I have a comment I wanted to say to Judy, that I was kind of peed off when you pushed Bill away when he put his arms around you.
The comment is that she's upset that I pushed Bill away when he hugs me at the end of the first act, or tries to flirt with me and start an assignation, maybe? Is that that's a cleaned up word, isn't it? I'm peed off, too, that I have to do it. I mean, my friends have said, what's it like to work with Bill Pullman? I said, I'm really challenged as an actress because I have to resist him coming on to me. And
This is a tell-all, man.
Are we on the web in color? Because somebody's getting red here.
But Bill Pullman has been very bad, and so she has a good reason to not want to.
Other questions? Yes.
I was surprised by how physical this play is. I mean, I have not read it, but on paper it strikes me as something that I would picture three people sitting at a table, and you're moving this whole play. I mean, not just the dancing and the fighting and working in the kitchen, but there's just constant movement. I just wonder if that adds a layer of difficulty to your preparation, or if it helps you get more into the character. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not used to doing these things, so I'm like ready to just like pour out everything. Like one of my most like frightening moments of the whole night is when I know that we're getting ready to have to polka. I can't believe I'm telling this. Whenever I turn around to turn that thing on, I'm like, oh God, okay. Just breathe. Here comes the polka music. So it does. For me, it adds a very big layer of difficulty. And do me a favor, anybody in this room, I'll give you $100 if you can sell that vaudeville stuff that I have to do every night and have anybody know what's going on. It's like, hey, look at that. Hey. And the audience is like, it's tough. We were in rehearsal and thinking like, how is this going to make any sense to anybody? And Bill and I actually went and watched all of this old vaudeville stuff at the Museum of TV and Radio in New York.
Very interesting. It's based on Smith and Dale.
Smith and Dale.
Do you know that? Very seminal vaudeville team, Jewish comedians who did circuit, and their heyday was actually 1915 to 22 or something, and they continued to perform into the 50s, and we watched their very, very kind of, almost Dada-esque performances they did on Ed Sullivan's show and a couple other variety shows where they were, appreciated by comedians like Jack Benny and those guys, and they invited them on the show to do their routines. And we saw the routine we do on here, which is take off the coat, my boy. And, it defies logic. It's a very interesting thing that it's almost folkloric. It has meanings to the audiences at that time that understood its context, but out of the context, you really don't understand it, But it's fun, I think, to do something that's unintelligible.
It is.
I wanted to say, and when we were rehearsing and I was doing all of the kitchen stuff one day, trying to get the right prop at the right place, and I just laid down on the floor and said, this is too much like my own life. I don't want to do this today. Why can't I play a queen?
Instead of a waffle maker.
Well, I think it's a testament to Judy, too, but I don't think people realize how much stuff she does in this play. And because you all see it, and it's just, like, so natural, this woman does so much stuff in this play. It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Okay, we've got time for one last question, so, yes.
A quick comment and a question. I haven't seen the play yet. I'll see it on the matinee the 28th, so be good. I go to a lot of plays in Washington. I love the theater. And I wanted to expand on, this is the comment part, on something that you had said earlier about how the reviewers come right at the beginning. And it takes time to work into a play. And if I can, I like to see a play at least twice, or if not, then I come at the end of the run. Because I figure that you're going to find out who you are and who your characters are by then, and not at the beginning. And I recognize, of course, they got to do their reviewing right at the beginning, but I think it is a kind of a disservice. Now the question. I don't know if any of you have been in a play with just 3 people before. And I know that this changes the dynamic. You're going right back to Greek theater, where you've got the first actor, the second actor, and the third, and that's it. And what is it like? How does that increase the back and forth zing, the pressure, with just the 3 of you to bounce off of each other? So I just wonder if anybody wants to comment on that. You can't hide in the back row.
No, you're on all the time.
Yeah, well, I've done, you have the privilege is that you don't have so much time off stage where people can talk to you about, how, what you're going to have do after the show or something like that, you're on. And I think for us, you have an opportunity to have an organic evolution of something that's going on. So something, a certain night, there's this thing that has happened in the first scene now, and for me, it's already part of what we're doing tonight, and this is going to be kind of part of one thing, right, that grows to someplace else. So it's actually a great challenge because you want to. If you don't, you're hung out to dry. If they say, "Oh, look at that! It just started on one note and stayed the same way the whole time." But if you can feel like you're pulling it off, then it's very rewarding.
Well, I can guarantee, and I'm sure the others who have seen the show, you're going to really be glad that you saw it, okay? And I want to thank all of you for coming today, and particularly Bill and Judy and Steve. Please give them a big hand and thank you so much.